Who are we if you don't know us? My name is Michelle de Goeas-Malone and Kat Almondral, right? We're both faculty members. That means that we are primarily responsible for teaching. We're not on campus 9 to 5, Monday to Wednesday. We're faculty, so we're here when we teach, or if we have office hours as well. We also have an advisor, Joseph Everin. So you've probably seen a lot of emails from him coming through. And then we have two peer advisors as well. We have Nigel Green and Caitlin Jacome. Nigel's actually graduating, but will be hanging around to help me with some paperwork during the fall 2 session. Caitlin will continue as a peer advisor. And if anybody in here is actually interested, you're still going to be here for a couple more semesters, you can apply to become a peer advisor. We're going to be looking for someone this semester. So that's, I think, who we are. That's our email. Let's see. So what's on the agenda? There are two things we're going to talk about today, generally field experiences. So everything that we can cover today, we will talk about that. And then when we're finished, we're going to have a Q&A session. We have your questions that you left when you signed up. So we're going to try to address those, as well as we're going to have you put any questions that you have in the chat. We're going to use that. And the reason that you are muted and that you picture that you do not have video is because we've recently been Zoom bombed, and I just don't want any of us have to experience that. And because it's an open meeting, we're putting in that extra security mechanism in it. I would love to see your beautiful faces, but we want to be safe. We want to keep everybody safe and not have to go through anything traumatic here. So let's go. So why do I need? We've put this presentation in the sense of question and answer. Here are the frequently asked questions that we get. So why do I need to do classroom observations or fieldwork? Well, it's a New York State teacher education requirement. In other words, if we want to keep offering education courses, we have to follow the law. What does the state require? It requires that each of our some of our education courses may not have fieldwork, like math for education, and that's because it's in a different department. But the state requires that our education courses be aligned with classroom and fieldwork hours. So if you wanted to know why can't I have done fieldwork hours in the past and why doesn't it count now? That's the reason. We have said to the state that when we have this class, students will be doing these hours at the same time, right? So it means that your hours done, which means only hours done while enrolled in a course count. If you do not complete the required hours, you will fail the course you are enrolled in. That is a New York State requirement. That's not a LaGuardia requirement. That is a New York State requirement. So any school you go to, that's the rules. If we don't follow those rules, we will no longer be able to offer education courses. Okay. So here is a lovely, I think this actually captures why we as teachers kind of agree with this policy. Someone actually put this into the questions when they were signing up for the registration, and it says, I wish I knew that the fieldwork experience was essential to do it at the beginning of the semester in order to understand the class better. Yes, that's the point of fieldwork. It actually connects to the content of the course. So if you get what's on the screen now, you get the purpose of fieldwork. It's also a nice way to connect, to do, a lot of our students have gotten jobs, networking at schools. Principals say, you're doing a great job, we want to hire you. Let's go. So here's another one. I work in a classroom. Do I need to do classroom observations or fieldwork? The answer is yes, in a way. You are required to complete all assignments related to fieldwork and observations at the appropriate grade level. So let's say you're a paraprofessional and you work with kindergarten, but you are actually a secondary ed student, so you don't have to hand in timesheets. But if your professor says you need to write up an observation based on 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, then you are required to do that. That's going to impact your grade. So you're still required to do any assignments connected to fieldwork. What does an exemption do? Let's say you do work in a classroom. I'm going to stress work in a classroom, not in the front staff, not as a parent coordinator, not as someone who visits a house or something like that. You're exempt from having to hand in timesheets, school permission forms, and field experience agreement forms. Those are the things you're exempt from. Again, you are not exempt from handing in assignments. And again, you need to be approved. So that's why you need to at least once, and we'll go over this in a second, hand in, fill out those pre-semester forms. So the next question is, which field experience sites or employment sites are appropriate? So appropriate field sites are New York City public schools, anything connected to New York City public schools. And the reason is we know that they follow the curriculum, the New York State curriculum. We know that they follow federal guidelines. Private schools do not, and we cannot guarantee a very good experience or one that will actually show you how things are connected to the standards. Part of what you're doing is you're learning how the classes that you take or the policies influence, right, the New York City public schools. So it's a better site and a better experience for you. So if you're in early childhood education, grades 3K through 2nd and Head Start are appropriate. If you're taking special education, then you can do the special education classroom at those grade levels. Bilingual ed, dual language, and you can also get into bilingual classes, but normally if you're in a bilingual setting, a transitional bilingual setting, it's very much a very English pushing, an English only kind of movement influence. So we prefer that you have an experience in a dual language setting, a true dual language classroom. For childhood, grades 1 through 6, not kindergarten, 1 through 6, that's what the certification is about. And again, if you're doing a special ed class, you need to do it in those grade levels. Appropriate employment settings. I mentioned this before, and I'm going to say it again. It's settings in which you are working directly with children in a classroom. Just because you work for the DOE does not exempt you from does not automatically give you an exemption for handing in timesheets, because we don't know if you're actually working with children at all if you're in the front desk. And the point is we have to have that evidence that you're in a classroom. So here are a couple things to know that New York City public schools require, right? They require a completed fingerprint and background check. They require a letter of introduction from the program to them. So those are the things that they require, and we facilitate. We facilitate it by asking you to complete those requirements prior to the beginning of the semester so that we can give you a letter of introduction. Here are some additional things that you need to think of if you're in early childhood. So, or you're just working with younger children. Head Start sites may have additional Department of Health requirements. So they may require you to have a medical clearance. So while you might be interested in working with younger children in the Head Start, you may not have the money, or you may not have access to the to a doctor that can give you that medical clearance. So when you're thinking about where you want to do, yes, you do want to do it, but can you afford those extra steps? This is not something that we as a program require. This is something that the schools require, right? Because you're working, one, the background clearances, you're working with children. We want to keep them safe, right? So I think I covered everything here, right? These are not good. So how do I get a letter of introduction or find out if I am exempt from submitting timesheets? Before the semester begins, you need to pass a mandatory online training. You need to complete an online fingerprint verification form. And you need, depending on your situation, you're going to do one or two things. One, you're going to complete or submit a screenshot of your completed fingerprint and background check. Or if you are employed in a setting where you're working with children, then you need to submit a letter. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. You typically only need to do these documents once, unless there is a change to your situation. So in some of the questions someone might have asked, what happens if I'm a paraprofessional and I'm no longer a paraprofessional? Do I need to submit anything? Or, yeah, you do need one, you need to notify us. Because frequently people that are hired, sometimes their employers also send emails and say this person no longer works here, right? So if you have submitted either or, I'm sorry, if anything, I got distracted by the chat. If you have done this, you only typically have to do this once, unless your situation changes or you got a job, right? So maybe you sent in the fingerprints and then halfway through the semester or the next semester you've been hired. That's been happening a lot, right? So next, we're going to come to your chat questions. Katerina, Professor Almondral is following. So here's the mandatory training, and we're going to get to the links of where to submit stuff. Mandatory training, it covers, so a lot of questions that we were asked prior to it, you can rush through the mandatory training and just take it, but a lot of questions we've been getting are actually answered in that training. So the mandatory training covers field experience policies, procedures, and expected behaviors. It is online and it's asynchronous. That means you can take it at your own leisure. We suggest you do it immediately. And if you forget, you're not sure, there are two places. We have a website that you can go to, a program website, or you can go back and just look at all the stuff that's in that training in case you forget. Sometimes you do forget. You just don't have to hit submit if you're just looking for information. But all of that information is also on our website. Here is the most important thing to remember. Training is only considered completed, or complete, should be complete, if you score a 10 and above. So that means after you've done the training, if you get a 9, you have to redo it, right? You only are considered passing. That's an 80% score in order to pass. Again, if you've taken it and you've failed, if you've only gotten like a 9, we do not consider it completed. You have to pass it. So how do I complete the background check and fingerprints? Well, first you have to register with Pets for LaGuardia. What does Pets do? They nominate you and add you to what's called the applicant gateway. That means, I'm sorry, I'm going to close the chat a little bit because I'm like that. I'm getting distracted. So what that means is once you have successfully been added, so once they nominate you, you send them information, they ask you for your ID, they ask you for typically an enrollment letter, or you can send them, if you have a picture ID on your phone, you can send them a screenshot of your ID and they accept that. If not, you can email the program and we will send you a letter of enrollment saying that you're part of the program, and you send them to you'll send that to Pets. But we have a website that shows you all the specific steps. So once they nominate you, and they will give you access to something called an applicant gateway, and you're going to go into applicant gateway and you're going to, click yes, all the information here is correct. You're going to fill out a background form. And then they will tell you what your status is. Again, I have another slide that covers this, but I just wanted to say it once here. I want to make it clear, Pets does not fingerprint you. So registering for Pets and getting fingerprinted are two different things. What Pets does, it gives us access. It protects your identity, but it gives us access to say, hey, is this student cleared for fieldwork? Right? And which pretty much says, did this student pass the background check? And they will tell us. The other thing is they don't have to tell us, because once you're in applicant gateway, all the schools have access to your clearance. So we don't even have to tell the schools. The schools can go in and check your status there, which is the most important thing. They're going to want to see that you're clear. The applicant gateway, yes, I said all of that. Yes, if you need to get fingerprinted, they will supply you with a specific code for New York City public schools. So don't get fingerprinted without doing all of these things. because then they're not going to know unless you use that code. So the next question is related. Do I need to be fingerprinted again? So if you have been fingerprinted in the past, it depends on what your situation is and when you were fingerprinted, who fingerprinted you. So, and yeah, how long ago it happened. I've been fingerprinted by the DOE many, many years ago, but my fingerprints are no longer good. So if I wanted to go back into the schools, I would need to get fingerprinted again. I forgot how much, I think it's about 5 years or so. They just changed the system. And I can't, I don't want to, lie to you and say it's exactly this amount of time because I can't remember. They will tell you. So once you get into the applicant gateway, you will see if your fingerprints are on record. One on the website. So if you want to take there is a QR code on the bottom right. If you want to just access that QR code so that you've got it on a website, you don't have to go to it now. We're not going to look at it right now so that you have it for the record. You can use that QR code and that will take you to the LaGuardia fingerprint verification website. And on that website, you will see that it indicates, have you ever been fingerprinted before? There are different options. Have I ever been fingerprinted before? Were you fingerprinted by the DOE? Were you fingerprinted by the Department of Health? And it tells you what to do next. So if you are fingerprinted by, say, the Department of Health, those fingerprints have to be transferred to the DOE. It does not happen automatically, right? And we have no control of what the DOE does, what PETS does, what the applicant gateway does. We're just facilitating your ability to go into a classroom in the public schools or work with children. I just want to look through the slides to make sure I've said everything. Yes, once you've completed the applicant gateway setup, including the background questionnaire, you will see if the DOE has your prints on file. So working with Microsoft Forms. So someone I saw in the chat before said, where do I submit everything? Well, everything is online, and I will get to that in a second. But I wanted to make sure we cover this because this is typically what happens in the beginning or even after you've worked with it and you come back to the forms later on. So first thing to tell you is you can't email anything to us because we cannot submit it for you. We do not have access. It asks for your private information, such as your MPL ID. That's why you have to log on to it because it's behind what's called a paywall. We are protecting your identity. And because of that, we cannot submit forms for you. You have to do it, so we have to troubleshoot until the forms work. So what's the typical issue when you're trying to access it is you have a message that says you have no access, right? That's a typical thing that happens. And it's because of the way that Microsoft set up the forms. They just blanketly ask you something like, put in your email or phone number. And you're like, what email and what phone number should I use? Should I use my personal? You should use none of that. What they're actually asking you for is your CUNY first login information. So for example, if my name is, actually it should be like Sally.Seashell12, right? So, it's your first name dot last name, and then the last 2 numbers of your MPL ID, and then it's at login.cuny.edu. That's what they're asking for when they ask you for your email. There are other issues. You might link onto it right away and it's set. You don't even get to see the questions about the email. It just tells you you have no access. That's probably a problem with you saving some other password on your browser, and then you have to clear your browser or you have to use incognito. And that's why you see at the right-hand bottom side of the screen, we have a troubleshooting document with videos and pictures in it that helps you figure out how to solve the problem. If you try everything on that troubleshooting form and you still cannot access it, get in touch with us and we will work it with you to try to figure out what the issue is. And if you're just not secure with technology, don't worry about it. Again, we're happy to sit with you and work through it. We can do it online as long as you're showing up with your computer, and we can help you that way and see what's going on. We also have the peer advisors or Joseph. And both Kat and I are always happy to sit with you and help you do this. Yeah, so let's go back to registering with PETS for LaGuardia Community College. Again, PETS is an independent place. We have no control over this. You have to self-register with the New York City Department of Education PETS office. You need to complete the forms available to you on the applicant gateway, including the background questionnaire. On your applicant gateway account, you will find instructions on making a fingerprint appointment if you need one. You need to follow those instructions carefully. That's the biggest thing. Make sure you read carefully everything they send you. They will tell you to go back. If you contact, they'll tell you go back to the email we sent you. Make sure you are consistent with the email. Do not make a mistake. Don't accidentally misspell your email that you're going to use, because your account is going to be connected to the email that you use for PETS. So make sure you have access to it. All of these things can really slow down the application process. And even it's really difficult to undo mistakes once they're done. So take your time. The current cost of fingerprinting is $101.75. So here is a sample. Again, you can take a screenshot of this, but here's the thing. We're going to actually share all of these slides with you by tomorrow or at the end of the day, depending on how tired I am or Kat is. We will send this to you with a follow-up. So here is the sample email that you would send to PETS, right? Very professional, very, make sure you know your name, your phone number. They want all of this. Once they get this, and they should respond to you within a week. If they don't respond to you within a week, do not send them a new email. Reply or forward the same email. Because then tell them you are following up. Because every time they get a new email from you, they treat you as a new human being, right? So make sure you're clearly sending the same. You're replying with the same email or forwarding the same email you sent. And be very specific with your questions for them. Because they're very much into protecting your identity, they do not share information with people very easily. They're not sure if you're the same person, so they're a little weary about who you are as well. Check your junk folder. Sometimes the emails from them go into the junk. Okay, caution. Do not start the process unless you are sure you can complete every step, and you must follow instructions carefully. So in other words, don't send PETS an email. They send you back something saying, oh, can you send me a copy of your Social Security card? Can you? And you're like, okay, I'll do that in about 3 weeks or so. 3 weeks, they may cancel your application. You took too long. So in other words, if they send you something, we need something, make sure within 3 days you've done it, right? And then if you haven't heard from them after, you follow it up with the same email. Keep the same email chain going. Again, we cannot intercede because we don't have, this is your private information. They're not going to share anything with us until you are in the system. And I just want to stress that this can be a long process. It can be a long process if the information that's going back and forth is not correct or something else is going on. So make sure you start this as soon as possible. That's our biggest piece of advice to you. Some people within 2 weeks, they have everything ready to go. Some people we've seen like 3 months and they're still struggling to fix things. So get it done as soon as possible. Whew, that's a lot of stuff. I need to breathe. I'm sorry, it's a lot of information, but we're trying to pack it in. So LaGuardia, we want to make this clear because we've seen a lot of going back and forth and students asking us questions. LaGuardia Education Program is not PETS. We're not the applicant gateway. We'll talk a little bit about reading core. We're not reading core. We are facilitating these things for the program. So when we say we need your, the only thing, the requirements that we have are you understand the mandatory training, especially the way you should behave on site. because schools have a right to say, we don't like that you're missing days. We would prefer if you not come back to the school. It is a professional environment, right? You're actually kind of, it's like you're on a job interview. Think about it that way. So we have no control over those situations, right? We wish that we did. I wish I could go into pets and say, hey, pets, you're not answering the student's question. And they've asked you a couple of times. Unfortunately, we're not in that situation. We wish we were. So once you've contacted pets and create the applicant gateway, you're beginning an individual relationship with the New York City Public Schools or the Department of Ed. LaGuardia does not control this process or have access to your username or passwords. So you need to save those. Registration with Pets for LaGuardia allows specific people like myself to find out your status. So not even all of us can find out, only specific people that we've appointed. Applicant Gateway allows schools to find out your status. So whoever is at the school, the principal, the secretary, the assistant principal, they can go into Applicant Gateway and see what your status is. Once you give them your social security number, you have to sign over that kind of permission. That's how tight the control is there. For those students working with Reading Core places students. We facilitate, right? All issues related to placements and issues with tutoring, and we'll talk a little bit about that. That's something you have to deal directly with Reading Core with. We can only help you if you explain and share what it is. Copy us if you're involved with Reading Core, copy your faculty, copy Kat and myself, and then we can see what's going on back and forth. But we cannot make changes to their program per se. We just connect. But what we're planning to do for the spring is to have a special orientation for students who will be part of Reading Core. I want to stress, getting fingerprinted does not mean you're cleared to go on the field. Just because you've gotten fingerprinted, it doesn't mean that you've passed the background. We have to see that it's completed. And if it says in progress, it means that you haven't really, passed that background check. There's something going on. So if you see 2 or 3 weeks and it still says in progress and you've been fingerprinted, something is going on. We need to figure out what it is. Contact one of us, and then we will most likely tell you need to contact pets to tell them what the situation is, and they will be able to look into it further. So here is an example of proof of completion. So once you're in Applicant Gateway, you'll be able to see this particular thing on the screen and what it does. So once you're finished this, right? And this is often a step that students forget. So they've gotten fingerprinted. They don't know that they've been cleared, and I don't blame them, because guess what? The Applicant Gateway people, the DOE, they don't email you and say, oh, we got your fingerprints, you're cleared. No, you need to go and check. That's the only way you'll know. Again, we have nothing to do with this process. What we need to do is, after you've been fingerprinted, make sure that you check. I would say about a week after. It might be soon. I've seen it in 2 days happen. But I would say you can keep checking. If you're like me and you're obsessive compulsive, a day after, you're going to keep checking every day until you see that it's cleared. Or not cleared, I'm sorry. It's marked complete. And that's how we know that you've finished everything. Again, we don't necessarily know if you're cleared. It typically means you're cleared if it's complete here. But the schools will definitely know, and they're the ones who require this. Sometimes the schools do come back to us and say, we don't have access, or they don't know they have access to Applicant Gateway, and that's when I can step in and send them. Only if the school directly requests me to send them a letter saying you've been cleared is when I check with pets. Because it's such a difficult process, and you do have to give me permission to do that. I cannot randomly do anything because I need the last 4 digits of your social security, and that's private information. So you have to give me permission to check with pets. Okay, here is a sample. Again, you'll have these slides. Here is a sample of what the letter of employment would look like. We don't currently have a fieldwork coordinator. We're actually going to start the hiring process for one. So hopefully by March we will. And again, I'm going to remind you the reason why it's very difficult to keep total control is because we have faculty members, not someone on staff doing this. So we're doing this in addition to our normal jobs. So we apologize for the delay it might take in getting that information to you. And we apologize for not being on campus 9 to 5, 7 days a week. So here is that example of the letter of employment and information we'll be looking on. Please get that on letterhead. If you can get it in PDF, it's much nicer than a Word document, because anyone can create a Word document, and it's a little bit extra work if I have to follow up an email, or any of us have to do it and go, hey, you sent a letter, it doesn't look official. Is this true? So, we don't have to go through that extra step. So here is a quick, I'm actually just gonna go through this because I'm looking at the time, it's already 4:30. I'm just going to give you the whole screen, or let's do it. So here are the things you have to do before the semester is done. Complete the online training, and I should say pass the online training and submit the first fingerprint agreement form. That form just simply says, I know that if I need fingerprints, I've been told. It's nothing new to me. I've been told about this. And the second thing is that, yes, if I work in a school, that's the other option. I couldn't remember what was on the form. So here's the first question. Do you work in a school setting? Yes, complete the employment verification form by submitting a letter of employment, right? This is after you've done those two things, right? Again, make sure that you're working in a classroom. If that letter comes back that just says, yes, you're working in a school, and it doesn't say that you're in a classroom, it will not be approved. So here's your other option. No, I do not currently work in a school. The first question is, have you been fingerprinted by the state or by the city? Yes, I've been fingerprinted by New York State, DOE. Then you transfer your records from the state to the city, right? You do that through registering for pets. Yes, I've been fingerprinted by the DOE. Register for pets. Your records should be on file. That should be pretty straightforward for you, unless it's been a few years. No. Next question then. So you've never been fingerprinted. My first question is, are you an international student? That means you're at F1. I forget the number. I think it's F1 visa. I can't remember exactly what the number is. Then yes, you need to email the Office of Personal Investigation. All of this is on online on a website as well. I'm just going through what the typical answers are. So are you an international student? No. Register for pets. So if you've never been, you need to register for pets and follow all those steps. So that's that. What happens after I submit all required pre-semester documents? So you've passed the mandatory training, you've done the fingerprint agreement form, you have submitted your letter of employment or the screenshot for your fingerprints, your background check being completed. Well, first thing is, we will only contact you if something crazy is submitted, right? If you've submitted it, and it normally goes, you get a copy of what you've submitted sent to your email. It's only going to be sent to the email that's connected to CUNY at login information. It's not going to be sent anywhere because that's the way, it's an automatic procedure, right, with an algorithm. So that's exactly what's going to happen. We cannot change that. That's the way CUNY works. So here's the thing. If you're enrolled in a course requiring hours and you've completed all forms that we talked about on slide 9, then you'll get an email from us. For example, this semester, you would have gotten an email like fall 2023, letter of employment accepted. Or you have fall 2023, letter of introduction and links to important fieldwork documents. Those are the 2 emails that you might get. If you might get something not approved, but that's basically when we're checking everything. If it's not approved, then you have something to fix, and we normally tell you what to do in the email. So if you have submitted everything and you do not get an email from the program, not from one of us, from the program, if you do not by the end of the first week of classes, and the reason why I say the end of the first week of classes, because some people register late, right? But by the end of the first week of classes, if you do not get either one of those emails from us, run to your email and quickly send us an email and say, I've done anything and I haven't received anything. I'm panicked. It might be that the email address, there was a, you guys have so many email addresses. Sometimes it's like, which email address should we be using? You put in your LaGuardia, but it's bouncing back to us and we don't know how to get in contact with you. Please let us know. That'll alert us and we can send you everything that you need. What documents will I need to complete during the semester? So unlike the pre-semester documents, you must complete these forms every semester. Field experience agreement form, that reminds you what you can and cannot do. Just a reminder. And that's online. So you just, click submit. School permission form. We have to know that you have been given permission to be on the school property. A teacher can't allow you to do it. The principal has to know. And these are things that have happened in the past that can get you and us into trouble. So it's okay. You might have a teacher that really likes and say, come to my class. But we don't have proof that the principal knows that you're on their campus, right? Weekly timesheets. Please do not wait till the end of the semester to submit your weekly timesheets. You are driving your professors bonkers because we are panicked that you have not done your hours and we become nervous for you because we do not want you to fail. And I understand you might be saying, oh, it's just faster for me to do it. Yes, it might be faster, but the assumption that we're making as faculty is, oh my God, my student's not doing their hours. I wonder what's going on, right? So that you're not anxious and we're not anxious, please submit them immediately every week as long as you've done hours. And you have to say which date. Please also write in hours and minutes. Do not write in complete minutes. You're making us do math, right? We can do it, but it's easier for us to help you follow your hours or to calculate your hours if you do. I've been for 5 hours and 30 minutes, not 5.5, because is that 5 hours and 50 minutes or 5 hours and 30 minutes? I'm going to assume it's 5 hours and 30 minutes, and it might be 5 hours and 50. So be clear about that. You will receive links to those documents and the letter of introduction at the beginning of the semester, right? So these are the ones you need to do, right? If you're in classes right now, you should be doing these. We try to update these as soon as possible. Okay, so here's the big question. Do you place students in schools? I'm going to go back down memory lane when we used to. We don't do it, right? We used to, but students didn't like when we were placing them in Far Rockaway, which is one of the schools we went to. Great school. Or if we put them in the Bronx, because we don't know where you live. So I'm going to say, be careful what you ask for. We are looking for school placements again as soon as we get a fieldwork coordinator, but be careful what you ask for. You might just get it and not be happy with it. So in short, we don't currently place students, right? In all classes, I'm going to come back to that. You need to find a school site to complete your hours in, right? That's the current model we have. We do have an embedded model for ELE 203, ELE 205, and ELN 206. That's where you're tutoring for Reading Core. Reading Core places you based on your availability. You must be available the same times, at least 3 times a week. You're going to have to attend an orientation and complete an orientation. You can be hired after completing your tutoring. Actually, this semester, people were hired right off the bat. So this is a really important experience. These are students who lost skills during the pandemic. So they're not the easiest. They have behavioral issues and you're working, sometimes you can work online or in person. And it's a very difficult, you learn about communicating with families. You learn about working with children who they feel so insecure about what they're asking you to do that they often act out as you're doing it. So you're really learning how to work with children. And you're also giving back to society, right? And if you want to just look at it, you put this on your resume, you are hot stuff, right? You've got great experiences that people want to hire you for. So it's a great experience. Is it easy? No, it's a lot of communication breakdown, but you have to read. They send you emails, you have to check your emails. It's so important. And you have to read what they send, because a lot of times we get questions, and when we look at the emails, it's answered in this email, right? And I know it's overwhelming because of all the information you're getting, but try to, I'm not sure. Let me go back and read the email before I ask the question. That would be my suggestion. And if you don't have the answers there, create a folder in your email, and everything that comes from them, put it in that folder. That's how I keep track of stuff. Tips for finding a school. The biggest tip I can give you, I wish I could put you in there. I would do it. I'd put you in a place where where it's comfortable and easy for you to get to. Persistence and perseverance. You are competing with many colleges, right? We are a university. And what is it, 25 colleges? We are a university. So you're competing with every college actually, you know what? Beyond CUNY, you're also competing with private colleges as well to get a spot. Some colleges have agreements with particular public schools. So, it would be nice to go to the school a block away from us, an elementary school, but guess what? They're already in a partnership with another school, with another college. So here's what we suggest. Start looking early. As soon as you get that letter, start looking early. Start with a school you or your family member attended or a friend attended. Email, call, but most importantly, visit the school. They can all just blow you off on an email or a phone call. Visit the school. If you visit the school and they say, you know what, we're going to look into this, you follow up on it. Don't wait for them to call you. If they haven't called you in a week, you go back and say, hey, hi, remember me? I'm so excited. I really am excited to start working at your school. I'm just checking in, right? So very positive, very welcoming. It's be professional. Dress professionally, right? It doesn't matter what teachers look like in the school. They've got their jobs. They've got tenure. You haven't, right? You want to be professional so that they can invite you in. They want to be comfortable. People do make decisions based on just looking at you, right? That's how we are as humans. Don't wait for the school to answer you before you contact another school. Contact all the schools. I'm going to contact 5 schools. I'm going to visit 5 schools in the first week. And the first one that's willing to take me, I am going because I want to pass this class. Talk to your classmates. People are like, oh, I already have a place. Where did you get a place? You think they'll accept me? And it might be yes. Talk, network within your with your classmates. Visit schools in your neighborhood. Know what dates and times you are planning to complete your hours. Get them done. I should put that, get them done around midterm. Don't wait till the end of the semester. But know what days. I can be here. Let's say I work full time. I can only be there 3 days. I can complete my hours in 3 days. Yeah, the school may not want you, right? They don't like people who helicopter in unless you know them. So they typically say, no, we're not really interested. And that's why you see that we send letters that say X amount of hours for X week, because we know what schools typically accept. But if you work, be honest with us, communicate with us and say, hey, this is what I have. I have to do this. This degree is not set up for people who have to work for a living. So we have to find out a way to help you be successful. But we cannot do that unless we know you communicate your situation with us and see if we can help you. We may not be able to help you, but we will try, right? Or we'll try to send you in the right direction. A question, how do I know how many word hours I need? Check the course catalog, but here's a nice table below that might help you. And you're going to ask me, oh, well, if, I'm taking, 2 classes, let's say I'm doing arts and education and foundations, 120. So that's 15 for arts and education and 15. You know what? If I do 15, that should cover both classes, right? No, you need to do 30, right? Or, that's what you have to do. You cannot double dip. Remember that first slide? New York State says you have to do this. And if New York State comes in and audits us, we have to prove to them that you are doing it. Otherwise, you guys will be the last set of education students we ever have. They'll shut us down, right? We got to follow the rules too. And we may not always agree with them. Okay, so that's your sort of a quick table to look at, but double check because things do change, right? So here are another 2 sets of important web pages. I've taken you to one of them, or at least I've shown you the QR code to the LaGuardia fingerprint verification page. And I've also put here the education program website. Here's a little bat link there. Everything that's in the mandatory training, in case you ever forget, is on that website, including the troubleshooting. So on the first page, right below where it says fieldwork, actually, you know what? Let me take you there for a second. Here you go. Field experience requirement. It's right here on this page here. Everything that we've been talking about, the clock hours, everything, a little bit more expanded than what I've been saying, but you have questions and quick links, getting fingerprinted field experience documents, completing hours. They're all on this website. So you can always go to this. You can search, in your search engine, education and TESOL programs, ePortfolio at LaGuardia, you typically come to this in case you lose the QR code. Let me go back now. Okay. How to avoid issues? 1, make sure you have registered for classes at least 2 weeks before the semester starts. We won't check into your files until that point, right? Because it just saves us time that way. 2, make sure you have submitted all required documents at least a month before the semester. Make sure you've started that process so you can hand them in and not be delayed through the semester. Communicate with us. Ask us questions. If we don't have the answer, well, we normally have the answer, right? We can help you quickly. Don't send us stuff, ask us questions, and then we can tell you, okay, send us this, or let's meet here and talk about it. Your success. So your success depends on your ability to communicate your issues or concerns with us early in the semester. If you work full-time and have limited time, talk to us early. We want you to succeed. And I'm going to say that loud and clearly because this is my personal thing. Everybody can yell at me at the end. I really think our children deserve faces that look like us in the classrooms. So I want you in classrooms, but I also want you to be prepared, and I want you to be the best that you are, because our children deserve the best. And I always teach in a way, do I want the students in my class to teach my children and my grandchildren? Am I secure with that? And you should ask yourself the question, would you want you to be the teacher of your kids? Right? So I think I am done. Again, still confused. This is a lot of information, right? I'm running out of time. It was a lot of information, still confused, need to be clarified with something. Email us, let us know. Okay, and then next, we invite you to type your question into the chat. So we won't be taking oral questions here. If you can just type your questions into a chat, we will respond to them. And I think I'm handing it over to you now, Kat. I've left you with 10 minutes.
Okay, so thanks, everyone. I see there are a lot of questions in the chat. I'm just going to go down and try not to miss any. I'm actually going to start back from the beginning. So you're asking, what if I've already submitted an employment letter? Then you're good. If you got an approval from the program, then you're good. If it was not approved, then you have to take steps to find a placement site, a school in which to observe. You've submitted all your forms already, so that's great. Then you should be hearing back from the program about whatever those forms were that you submitted. Where do I have to send it? I'm going to refer you to, I should have this slide that Michelle just showed with the QR code, but you can go to our program website, which has the link to where you can submit those forms. I am currently doing fieldwork for a course. Do I have to do the fingerprint process again? So if you're currently doing fieldwork, then that suggests that you're either in an approved fieldwork setting, or you've already been you're eligible to be in a school, so you're good to go. So you don't have to be re-fingerprinted unless something should come up. Is reading core mandatory? Reading core is mandatory for fieldwork unless you are employed for 3 courses. In early childhood, it is required for ELN 206 and ELE 205, and for childhood education, it is required for ELE 203. Lots of shouts out to the departments and thanks to various professors, so you should take a look. Where do we submit the documents? Again, it's going to depend on which documents. Actually, Michelle, do you want to take this one?
Sure, I'm going to take you back to the slide while you do that. The documents, they're here, where it says complete this mandatory online training experience. There are a couple of places you can either go on this site here, or you can go to the education program, and it says required field experience documents. So there are in 2 places that you can see where to go to. They're all online. We do not accept any hard copies at all. Remember, this is behind a paywall. We cannot do it.
Thanks. And I'm seeing I've already submitted my employment letter, but I have still to do the mandatory online training. Should I still do it? Absolutely. So please go back in and complete that online training.
We will not approve your letter unless the training is done. So you will not get an email from us approving your letter. And if we don't have the approval, if your professor doesn't see that it's approved, you'll get an F in the course. So make sure you've done everything you're supposed to do.
And you're also a bit confused about the timesheets. You're wondering, do you have to submit a timesheet for all your classes? What you do is you submit your timesheets when it's not specific to class, it's specific to time. So as you're accumulating those hours, so to use Michelle's example, if you're in ELE 110 and you're in foundations, then and you have say 30 hours, then you should be submitting timesheets each week that total up to 30 hours. And then we will look at it across. With reading ready and special education. No, if you are working with reading core, then reading core is keeping track of your hours. And we are coordinating amongst those particular courses and sections with reading core. So we will be talking to you specifically. But you have to do it for ELE 200. And sorry. So special education, yes, submit your timesheets. Reading ready, I'm going to turn over to Michelle.
Yeah, so I was going to say that same thing. If you are in ELE 200, then that's a special ed environment that you need to be in. Again, like that quote said in the beginning, it really helps you to understand the content of the course. So being in reading core doesn't help for special ed. You're not working with special ed students. You are working with students who are behind behind in their learning, that really need your help, individual one-on-one help that a teacher can't support. That's all I wanted to add.
No problem. Sorry, I had a moment because I know there was a question that was raised about that, but which we'll get to later. I work with early childhood, but my major is childhood education. Is there a problem? So if you're employed in early childhood and that counts for your hours, you're still going to be required to complete your classroom assignments. So you would still need to go into an early childhood classroom at your job in some way, shape, or form to use that information to respond to your fieldwork assignments. I am currently doing fieldwork for a course. Do I need to be fingerprinted again? And again, if you've already, if you're already been shown to be eligible to be in the school, or you have that employment verification approval, then you're good to go. Is reading core required as the fieldwork site for certain courses in the major in addition to our general fieldwork site? So for ELN 205, sorry, ELN 206, ELE 203, oh my gosh, I'm blending, ELE 203 and ELE 205. So those are 2 early childhood courses and 1 childhood course. That is your fieldwork. So you wouldn't be doing it somewhere else. Now, if you are taking other courses in addition to those courses, then you may have different types of fieldwork that you are completing at the same time. Sorry, I just have to make sure I lost a bit of the chat just went away for a moment, so I'm just pulling it back up. Okay, here we go. I apologize. I have SSY 105 in spring 2. Should I change it to spring 1? So I'm going to say, and Michelle, please weigh in. That is up to you and what's what is the best fit for your schedule. I would consider the number of fieldwork classes that you have, the number of hours, the number of writing intensive classes that you have, and that's, I believe, 25 hours. Is that correct? I have to
Yeah,
go back and
that's
check the
correct.
part myself. But so please keep that in mind. And then if you are taking it in spring two, then I would look at your schedule and consider the amount of time you have to complete 25 fieldwork hours in addition to your coursework, and how everything is scheduled. And then I would make that decision accordingly. I've already submitted my employment letter last semester, but I've never done the training. Yes, please. It's required to do it. So yes, please complete that mandatory online training. I was,
Can I pick it up
oh,
from Kelly? Oh, go ahead.
oh, please.
So I was a bit confused about that. So we have to submit timesheets for all. You only submit time. So if you're doing reading core, that's already documented separately. They're contacting us and they're telling us if you're there or if you missed hours, things like that. But I know, Kelly, your particular situations, you're in a special ed core doing special ed. So you need to submit your timesheets for that course. That is separate. That's a different environment altogether, right? And then I'll pick it up if you want to, or I'll just tell you where. If you go to 4:43 p.m., there's one from Kimberly if you want to pick up from there. Because I know I've lost where we were in the chat too.
No problem. Let's see, 43.
4:43.
Oh, I see it. I got it. I work with early. Oh, okay. So I think we got that one. I work with early childhood, but my major is childhood, and we talked about kind of going into going into a childhood setting. I think I actually reversed that, Kimberly.
Yeah,
So
I think we did. We
I
covered
reversed that.
actually.
I was sending you to early childhood and you're sorry. So yeah, you work with early childhood. So you need to go and observe in a childhood setting to do that, to do your classroom assignments. And you're doing fieldwork, so you don't need to be fingerprinted again. Reading core is required for family, school, and community.
Go down to Jessica Flores at 4:50. I don't think we answered her question.
Okay, I've already have the fingerprints and background check, and also work in a preschool. Do I just need my letter of employment? If you've done the mandatory online training and the agreement form, then yes, you would then just submit the verification of employment. You would submit the letter to the verification of employment form. Will we be contacted if we completed our hours? I believe I completed my hours, but I want to make sure the staff see it too. Michelle, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Yeah. So one, your professor knows what your hours are. As long as you've been submitting it, your professor is seeing how many hours you've submitted so far. So your professor may contact you if your hours are they're not ready, but you can also, we won't contact you. You can email us and we can check it for you really quickly. What do we have for you in terms of your hours? Because we document which weeks you have submitted for and things like that. Do not try to submit all the documents at the same time. We only look at one page. We do not look at multiple pages. So for every timesheet you have to submit it individually. We're only going to look at the first one. I think that answered the question. You want to go to Nancy?
Yep. I think I did Nancy's already. That was Nancy's question.
Oh, that was Nancy.
And then actually, so I'm going to Jennifer your question. I am currently working in an early childhood center as a teacher assistant. I'm also fingerprinted in my classes under the DOE. Can my fieldwork be within my school? It sounds like it can. So I would submit a letter of employment from your school to the employment verification form, and the education program will review it and then send you a letter of approval if it fits.
I'm just going to stop you for a second, Kat. It is 4:59. If you have to leave, please feel free to, but please, we encourage you. We will stay on as long as we need to. We have a bunch of questions. They're very similar. We believe we've answered everything in the presentation because we looked at your questions before the presentation, but please feel free to stay on. We will be here. But if you need to leave, you can also do that as well. We will follow up with the presentation. Before we continue answering questions, I'm just going to say thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And then we'll just continue answering questions. Kat?
So yeah, I'm just going to second Michelle's thanks. And here we go. Sorry.
What happens if I haven't been employed yet, but I already handed in my forms?
Okay, well, if you haven't been employed and something should change, so I would say it depends on where you're at. If you started fieldwork and you're reserving in a particular site and then you are employed, then you can submit a letter of employment and then you would then switch the type of fieldwork that you are engaging in. I already work in an after school. Would I be able to get approved for that as fieldwork? Generally, yes. So I would submit a letter of employment, and the program will review it. And if it meets the criterion, then we will send you a letter of approval. So please submit that letter of employment for that. Would I be able to check the presentation slides again? Yes. So we are going to send that out, or be able to access the information through the website. So after coming to the meeting a bit late, we are going to send out the slides, so that will come out soon. I'm going to go with soon. We're going to try to get it back to you within the next few days. So absolutely, we will send out these slides. Okay. And Kelly, I'm not sure if we answered your question. I'm seeing
You say that you're confused. Can you type the question again? And then maybe we can see where you're confused. We're not, you just said, I'm confused. There's a lot of stuff to be confused about. If you can type your question again at the bottom, we'll double check what it is.
I'm going to start my very first field work from spring semester. Very cool. I have completed both the background check and fingerprinting. Okay, so it sounds like you need to, great. And I want to start looking for a fieldwork site. Should I just walk in? Is there any letter from LaGuardia I should pass to the school in order to, okay, to explain that I'm a LaGuardia student, I need to complete fieldwork. Great. A lot of questions there. So you will actually be receiving materials. So if you've done the mandatory online training, if you've submitted the agreement form, and if you've provided us with proof that you have completed the fingerprinting process so we can confirm your eligibility, then generally, I want to say, and Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, about a week or so before classes start, then you will start receiving your forms that you will need, because actually there are forms that you want to take with you. So you want to identify a set of schools that would work, and please go to the school prepared to answer their questions and with your request, and also with your documents. So we've actually had reports where students have gone to schools, but perhaps not had their documents with them, and they were asked for that. That then increases the time, because sometimes getting the right people that you need to speak with takes time. So you want to have them on hand in case they need a physical copy. And also go knowing when you can complete your fieldwork and what your request is, a particular grade level, particular days, particular hours. So when you go, I would say be prepared in all of these ways.
And can I jump in and say, now is way too early. The spring semester doesn't start until March. So they might say to you, yes, now. Let's say you went on and you just asked around and they said, yeah, we take students. But now it's too early, because you can go back in March and be like, we don't have any places left. We know you promised you here. Now is too soon and you need that letter. I would say start scoping out and have your plan ready. So have those 5 schools ready that you're going to contact, right? Don't just let, if the school says yes, until they've signed that form and you're in a classroom, that's when you know you're in, right? It depends. You may get yes today, and then 2 other students show up at the right time in the right place, and they get that spot. So it really is it's almost a game of chicken sometimes.
And it's okay to go to those 5 schools, because that comes up as well. It's a great way to have a partnership and to thank them for the opportunity if you were accepted in all 5 locations, and to ask them if you can work with them again. So that's great. You want to be kind of going to multiple places. Yeah. Great. So I'm seeing some questions about reading core. We would welcome your feedback and look forward to it. Thank you. Thank you.
Kimberly, I'll answer these 2 questions. Kimberly, we if I'm employed, if you've been approved, then no, you don't have to do it, but you have to be approved. Just because, again, you work, make sure we know you're approved prior. Sunny, a few emails went out before the semester started, so this is, make sure you check and read those things before the semester started. That reading core would be involved. Talk to us though. Let's see what your situation is. And Kat, you want to jump back to Shirley's, I think at 4:58 p.m.
How do we get the information? How do we get the information to log into PETS? So Michelle, do you want to show that site again?
Yes, sure. I'm going to show this one. Here it is. Go back to this here. You can look at the QR code right now, take a picture of it, and then it will just bring you here. Or you know what you can do? If you go on to LaGuardia's website as well, you can also do something called fingerprint, spell it correctly, fingerprint. And it's normally the first one that will pop up here, fingerprint verification. You can also go to the education program, click on required fieldwork, or it says getting fingerprinted. You can click on that as well. and it actually should lead you to the website. So there are many places you can get to it from there. If you sent me an email, the program website is linked in my signature as well. Same thing with Professor Almondral. Do you want to, let's see, where are we in the chat?
Yes, images in case. Thank you so much. Do I have to submit multiple timesheets for ELE 200?
Every week that you go, so if that was the question, every week that you go, you should be handing in timesheets for that week. Don't save them all up, but every week that you go, when you got the letter of introduction, it said, here are the forms for the weekly timesheets. Sometimes those, if it was really early, someone's now in the, yeah. If it was really early before the semester, you got one of the links may not have worked. You just need to tell me if the link is not working, but you should have had those timesheets going all semester for ELE 200. And when we sent the email, we said all you need to do is be enrolled in Reading Corps. We track your hours that way. You don't have to submit timesheets because we can see and we have it documented from Reading Corps.
I don't have to submit a timesheet for ELN 206 and ELE 205. Right. That is correct. Will there be, will there be another meeting after this one? Another orientation?
We plan to do an orientation every semester now because we realize this is a lot of information. Even if you do the mandatory training, it doesn't hurt to do it, but we're just going to make it mandatory. It doesn't hurt that every semester, well, at the end of the semester, we'll do an orientation like this. Yeah, we want everybody to be informed about what the requirements are. And then if you're doing, we are planning to have, if you're going to be in 203, 205, and 206 in the spring, we will have an orientation before the semester. That will be mandatory. So you understand the expectations. Again, it's a new partnership that we just built. It was piloted the first semester, and this semester, it was actually embedded in the course. And you'll find that this is not just a LaGuardia thing. It happens throughout different campuses. They can, you know, if you go beyond LaGuardia, you might find at the four-year college, they place you and you have to go where they send you. And you have to go at the days and the times that they send you to. As you get closer to your student teaching, you have to think about, you know, your priorities in terms of working full-time and the requirements of the school, because you do have to student teach full-time.
And I'm seeing, I have an employment letter done, and they've given it to you last Tuesday, which is great. And you've been able to do observations. So it sounds like you are on track. And if you have any questions, just let us know.
Just make sure that if you're doing it this semester, make sure that it's submitted, because if you don't submit it, we don't see it in the database, your professor doesn't know, and they're going to give you an F. Make sure, even if you've got it, make sure your professors know that you're in the system, so that you don't have to go argue for your grade, right?
And this one, Michelle, I'm going to direct to you for fall 2. When can we expect to start getting emails with the forms that are needed?
I would say for fall 2, which starts, can anybody remind me? You should get them about, because when is fall 2 start? I think it's like
January. I apologize.
I think January. It's normally like the first week in January. So we will try to get those out to you towards the end of December, before January starts, because it's going to be a tight fit, right? So maybe like around the 15th or so, we'll start sending those off, just so that you can either, and if you are currently doing field work this semester or classroom observations this semester, and you're doing fall 2, you can also talk to them ahead of time. And if you can put your question in the chat for us, please.
I see I'm taking ELN 121 and ELN 110 for this upcoming spring, so that would be counted as fieldwork. Yes, I believe that is 110. Is that 15 hours and 30? So you have about 45 hours, if I'm correct on that one. I don't understand how the timesheets work, but I'm already working in a preschool. So do I need to submit timesheets?
Go for it. When you get a letter from us, and I'll repeat it again, If you get an approval letter from us, you do not fill out timesheets. You're exempt from submitting timesheets. The only time you fill out timesheets is if you have to do fieldwork hours in a school that you do not work in. So if you're currently, you have been, you know, that's a good question that came up. If you currently work and you've been approved, you do not need to submit timesheets. You will get an email from us that says exactly that. What you have to do is you have to complete assignments. So if you work in, you know, as I said, if you work in a secondary ed school, but you're in early childhood, you've got to figure out a way to observe young children on your own, right? That's what you need so that you can complete any assignments you are required to do. That's the only thing you are exempt from, is handing in timesheets if you've been approved. If and only if.
And I'm seeing with that said, should I contact the schools so just to confirm, should I contact the schools just a few weeks before the semester starts? Because I will need to bring the documents which will be provided for me from LaGuardia. Absolutely, that is correct. So you want to wait till you get those documents. You want to have the schools ready that you would like to visit. Once you receive those documents, make sure that you have everything you need. Bring copies with you so that you can leave them if you're asked to, and then go to see the schools once you receive those documents. Thank you. And thanks for the feedback about what works and what we need to be clearer about. Both are incredibly helpful. Another question, can charter schools be a field site too? My children go to a charter school. So Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but that should work.
It should work. Charter schools are, you know, there is some connection. Private schools versus public schools. But again, I'll just say there is at least the charter schools have to follow the New York State curriculum to a T, right? They're governed that way. So yes, charter schools typically work as long as it's an appropriate grade level.
And I'm also saying, can you do observations at the school where your children are? If they,
that's up to the school.
Yeah, that's up to this. If it fits your major, so if you're
Yes.
finding a school and it fits the grade level of your major and the school gives you permission to observe there, then you absolutely can. Will there be an
About the
orientation?
school, not about us. Yeah.
Yeah. Will there be an orientation for the ELE 200? I have this upcoming class this spring. So, oh, Michelle, I look like you're about to say.
you can talk to your professor, but there won't be an orientation for it. This isn't general orientation, but Professor Conte is in the room someplace. He's teaching both sections of it currently, so you can always reach out to him and ask him about the class and figure out what is going on there. There's no specific orientation for individual classes, unless it's something like reading core, which we decided to implement based on feedback from this semester.
Yeah, I'm planning to take 4 courses, which require a total of 60 hours of fieldwork. Do you think it will be overwhelming? I'm a full-time student and a full-time mom too. I do think you have a lot on your plate. Because generally those courses, depends on which 4 courses, but I suspect some of them at least are writing intensive, which means reading intensive, which also means fieldwork in addition to coursework and homework. So yes, I would think about that quite carefully to see if that will fit.
And Nigel, you sent me a direct message and I lost it in here. So Nigel is one of our, oh, there it is. She said, did you explain who the student should contact in the school? I had a student come in yesterday asking who they should talk to. Typically, no, we didn't. Thank you very much for raising that. No, we didn't. Schools are different. You start with the front staff. You ask for the principal or you ask for the front staff, who should I talk to? It's typically the principal or the assistant principal, depending. If it's a high school, there are tons of different assistant principals, and you normally start with them or the principal. I can't tell you specifically who it is you will contact. The experience is different, but start with the front desk. If you're emailing, start with emailing the principal. You can normally find that information on their website. But going in person, you know, it depends. The school might say, sorry, you can't go in person here. Email this person or call this person.
And I'm seeing, can I come in on Monday for a little more information? So
it depends. So
it depends. I was gonna say it depends. Like, who you're trying to, like, who you'd like to contact. And I believe we have our contact information on the slides.
Yes, and I'll sort of remind you that Professor Almondral and I are faculty members. We are not on campus 9 to 5 Monday. We're just like your other professors. We just have this additional job that we do. We're not on campus 9 to 5. However, we also have helping hands, right? So we have Joseph Everin, who is, sometimes available to help us. It's not he runs the lab, but he's helping us out, and he knows a lot about the stuff, so he can advise as well. We have our peer advisors, who I believe next week is their last week. And we should have Nigel, I hope I'm not selling you out, but she's also going to be helping us out with some of the fieldwork questions, being around when we can't. Starting in January, Professor Almondral and I won't be there physically. We will be online and available to help you online, but we will only be on campus when we have meetings, because neither of us are teaching, but we do have online hours. Again, it's not like a 9 to 5 job. So I would actually email first to make an appointment with any one of us. We all have multiple jobs. Please email us. And I'll answer Stephanie. On my child's school says that students cannot do observation hours in the school. That's probably the rule that school has, and it's probably a general rule for the DOE. So that answers that question. It's not what we want, it's what the schools. Remember, we're just facilitating. So if the school says to you that you can't do it, you can't do it. It's not something we can override.
And I'm seeing a few just before that. I'm in bilingual education. Can I do observation in a high school?
Hold on.
That is at 5:13.
At 5:13?
Yep.
If you're in bilingual, you can't do it in high school because there are no bilingual ed programs per se at the high school level, but your major is actually grades 1 through 6. So you have to be in a grades 1 through 6 school. There are schools like International, and there's schools like Newcomers that have some sort of approach to learning a second language or using the first language. But if you are in a bilingual ed program, you are in a grades 1 through 6 program, so you can't do it at a high school.
And I think you got
Same question about Leslie. You said, if I was a major in bilingual ed, will I be able to be
with young children, I think?
Not currently. The major is 1 through 6. There are schools that have early childhood with bilingual, but we only have grades 1 through 6. We do not have early childhood, so you can't do anything below first grade.
And then that's all I'm seeing in the chat. Michelle, I don't know if you want to go to the other questions that we have on the slides.
Mm-hmm. Are there any more questions? So I think we've answered every question. We can quickly look through and you'll see that basically the questions are the same. We'll go through the slides now.
I'm planning to take SSY 105, SSY 230, ELN 121, ELE 110 in spring semester. You said that's a lot on one plate. So you have
what I would suggest you do is go to the degree planning. So that's degree works. Degree maps. We've set it up and I kind of explained the way to break it down. I would say that you should do, depending, I can't tell you right off the bat because I don't know what courses you have, how many courses you have left to do. You may have limited amount of courses, so you may be stuck with that, right? But I'm looking at that, at least 3 out of those 4 classes are writing intensive. If a class is writing intensive, you can assume that it's reading intensive. Plus you have the fieldwork hours to go with those classes. And I believe you were the individual who mentioned you had a young kid. Yeah, I would try to see if I could move stuff around. If you can't, it depends on when things are being offered and what's open and what's not open. So try, if you have 3 kids, I know what that's like. That's a lot, right? Especially if they're young and they need you, to be looking at homework. Think about what you do regularly. If you struggle already without fieldwork to keep up with your work, yes, it's great to have everything done, but sometimes you just need to move stuff around.
Some early childhood, I work in a daycare. They sent me the letter this week. Is it too late to submit it?
For this semester, no. It's do it now. Do it,
Yeah.
like get off of here, do it. Make sure you've done everything else. Make sure you do the mandatory training, everything, because you'll just get an email saying, hey, we can't approve this because you're still missing something. Make sure you've done everything you're supposed to do.
And is there anywhere I can go to for help in person with personal questions? Absolutely. It's just about making an appointment. So we're happy to
email
meet
us.
in person or online. We just need to set that time so that you are able to, so that we don't leave you. We don't want you to be there when someone else isn't. We want to make sure someone is there, especially if you'd like to have that in-person meeting. Will we receive a copy of the orientation? We will be sending out the slides, so those will be shared. Absolutely. Okay, thanks.
We may not be sending out the recording. We're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so that's all I'm seeing here. Do you want to shift down, Michelle? We'll just take a look and see if we.
What, you want me to keep going on the
And I'm
slides?
seeing, so Sunny, we're actually still trying to figure that out. We are absolutely sending out the slides and we're determining if the recorded version would be sent out. If it is, we will let you know right away. And it might be helpful to the students that register late. Absolutely. We will keep that in mind. And then we will send out the slides and potentially make that decision about the recording. But we'll keep that in mind as we're making that decision. So thank you for that. And okay, I think we got at what fieldwork is and how it works.
I think we got everything on this question.
Accumulated. I
Thank
wonder if it's
you, Kelly. She just,
Thanks.
yes.
Is it required? Even if I work for, is fieldwork required even if I work for the DOE, which I think was at the first few slides. And thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you. Can I have an appointment? Yes, just please email us, or I believe Michelle or
Yeah,
all
let
of
me put it in the chat.
side.
Just email education program. It's pretty sure education program, and try not to misspell it like I do sometimes, at lagcc.cuny.edu. And just ask
That's
if
because
you
we're
want to
all on the
speak to
other
one of
side
us
of
in
that.
particular. If you want to speak to us in one in particular, just say that. Just send that email where you all have access to it, and we can send you to any particular area.
Absolutely. Do I need to submit another letter? Okay, I think we got it. All of these on the first slide.
Yeah. And if you change your, make sure everything is updated. If you're no longer working, make sure we have your a screenshot of your completed background check. You're going to have to do that. You don't have to get fingerprinted, but we do need to know if you're in the system so that we can send you a letter of introduction.
So yeah, and so actually what we did was what we were targeting those enrolled in fall 2 and spring. So you might have gotten the same email multiple times. It's actually the same orientation. It was just that we were trying to get at everyone who we know is taking a course in fall 2 or spring, and hence we'll be having it most likely again prior to the start of spring, so that we can try to get anyone new who's registered. So thanks. Okay, so, and Michelle, can you switch us to the next slide? Sorry, I think we have all of these on the first slide.
Not moving. Okay, there we go.
What happens if I don't get the full hours? What happens if I don't get the full 30 hours before the last day of the semester due to student absence? So this is a great question. I would take it to your professor to kind of see what can be done. And so, yeah, and when you have special circumstances and things are coming up and fieldwork is becoming a great concern, please reach out to your professors so we can see what we can do to support you in that. What happens, and that's, I think, the same thing. What happens if I don't complete the total hours because of inconveniences? Again, reach out to your professor and talk to them so we can see how we can support.
Can I just jump in and just say, so here is where we'll just put that in it. If you are not completing your hours because you are absent from fieldwork, then it's very hard to help you. But if you've been to fieldwork and let's say, I have a feeling this is reading core related, and your tutee or the person you are tutoring does not show up, we actually still count that as hours because it's very hard. I mean, it's if you were going to a school and your cooperating teacher, the teacher whose classroom you are in, is absent, you can frequently either go with the substitute or ask to be placed in another room. However, when you're tutoring, if your tutee does not show up, you may not have time to do it. The schedule that you have may not fit with a substitute. You also need days in advance to sort of rearrange schedules. So we're actually very understanding, and we've been talking to Reading Core about things that are going on. So don't feel that we're not doing it. As long as you've been active and you've been following all their rules, and reading all of their correspondence, we are there to support you. If, however, you have been absent, you've been assigned to students and you have just not shown up without emailing them or talking to us, it's very difficult for us to support you because we have no argument, And I will add here that people have been asked not to return by the schools that they're tutoring students in for absences. It's not Reading Corps who makes those decisions. Everything comes from the public schools. So if you are supposed to be tutoring a child and you haven't shown up 8 times, you've left that child hanging. And the school will email Reading Corps and say, we don't want this student to come back again. And that means, guess what? The whole of LaGuardia thinks that all of our students are like that. So you might get odd looks if you end up at that school. So, oh, it's one of those LaGuardia students, right? So you're representing and being professional is really important there. But what I want to get to is if you've been there and you're conscious and you're trying and you've emailed and you talked to us, you will pass the class, right? Because it's not due to your own fault. We're looking at how many things. And if you couldn't be paired with students for a particular reason, we also take that into account. What we want you to do is if you've been doing the right thing, you should succeed. If it's not because of anything you have done, we will get you through. Your success is really important to us. Go ahead, Kat. Sorry.
Oh, no, that was
I
great.
have a soapbox that I need to climb on every day.
No, that was great because I know there are a lot of questions around all of these things. So we thank you for sharing. And Michelle, thanks for that. And I'm saying, like, as students, what will be our role? So just towards that end, and I'm going to quote, Michelle and I were having a conversation about that. Like, it'd be great if you go there and say, like, how can I help? You can participate, you can support the teacher if they're okay with that. Some teachers may ask you to go and sit in the back of the classroom and observe, but some may also ask you to help them and to participate in some way, shape, or form. So it will depend on your fieldwork site and who you are actually partnered with, so your cooperating teacher. Okay, I think what we have to do, the necessary information.
And it's also in your letter of introduction. We also lay out for the principal, and you have that copy of letter of introduction, and you can print it out multiple times if you're going to different schools as well. In the letter of introduction, we talk about you being a participant observer. That means that as a college, we prefer for you not sit at the back of the class. I know there is a distinction between observation hours and fieldwork hours. Fieldwork hours tend to be more and more interactive, whereas classroom observation is about observing. But we would like you to be active on all cases. We really want you to learn, especially how students learn. It's not so much about how teachers teach. It is about that. Okay, let me not say that. It's halfway about how the teachers teach, but are children actually learning from the way the teachers are teaching? Can you walk away with that? Can you go, hey, we're learning about all these theories in class, and I'm not seeing any of this stuff when I go. That's a great connection. That's why you're there. You're not there to just check off hours. It's a learning experience. Yeah. Soapbox again, sorry.
No, it's okay. It actually had me thinking of, like, and that's actually one of the reasons for many of the partnerships that we have. We're trying to kind of provide you with many different types of experience. So for example, early childhood and childhood, starting out observing in different schools, and then coming to this Reading Corps partnership where you're actually partnered with a lead instructor who can help you and help you develop your skills prior to those who are going directly into the industry, those who might be transferring, and eventually student teaching, to get these different experiences. So what are the requirements? Especially to succeed. So I would say to be prepared in terms of the success, to start early and be prepared, have the materials that you need, be professional, be reliable, ask how you can support your teacher in the classroom so that you get the opportunity to get the most out of your experience. If something comes up and you have questions or concerns, or you feel that there's a challenge and you're worried, communicate that directly or immediately is what I mean, with your professors. Reach out to us so that we can support you. We're trying to provide you what we think will be helpful, but certainly we get the feedback that sometimes things are unclear, could be better, could be framed in a different way. And we really appreciate that, because then we can incorporate the feedback and then try to make it better the next time. So we really appreciate that as well. But that communication is key. Having your documents with you, I'm thinking even just from the get-go when you go in, and also having an idea of what you'd like to say because it, you know, so you're not surprised. They may ask different things, but again, if they ask you for something, you can hand it to them as well. And making those connections is they're a great way to, you know, get, I'm losing it, letters of recommendation and networks and jobs and things like that. Sorry, Michelle.
In terms of learning, there's this thing called the syllabus that your professor hands you typically at the beginning of the semester. And most professors have a weekly outline. And you can kind of, when you look at the syllabus, they typically describe different activities. So in my class, I described the case study that students have to do based on the interaction they're having with the students. So I would suggest to you, I know it's cliche, it's, you know, read the syllabus, but look at the syllabus. You can actually time. If you see, oh, wait, I have this assignment that I need to write up an observation due on this date. I have to do hours before then so I can complete the assignment. So if the question is about being successful in the class and getting an A, you guys are really smart. Typically, if you do the work, you guys are going to walk out with an A, right? You do, okay, I'm going to put quality work, which is normally just you've thought about the work, right? But I would look at the syllabus as a good starting point because every professor is going to have their fieldwork assignments in different areas. Some professors want you on the first day, you know, not first day, by the third week, you're doing an assignment. Some professors wait till closer to the end because you don't have enough information. I'm sorry, for the truck behind. It's the truck disagrees with everything I said. Yeah, it's, you know, you have to, I would look at that, you know, yes, you can plan to do it all up front. You know, I've seen people within 3 weeks finish their hours. But does that mean they're going to be successful? Because if your professor says, oh, I'd like you to write a reflection about this week's activity connected to this thing we just learned, that person who finished their hours can't answer those assignments, you know, clearly and well. So success depends on the class you're in terms of when you do your field work and what assignments are due.
And then I'm seeing how will I find a school to accept me to do my field work there. I think there's, we talked about it a bit, but I would say identifying multiple schools to reach out to, finding out if a school you went to or someone you know went to, where you have a contact with would be great places to start. And then bringing your materials, available resources, and how to properly reach out and ask to volunteer in schools. So great questions. And I think we talked about it again in those slides, but I guess there's disagreement there as well. No, but yeah, have your materials. The resources will be sent to you about a week before classes if you've submitted all of the requirements. So remember, if you haven't received their letter of introduction, timesheets, so on and so forth, it means that we haven't gotten your mandatory online training or agreement form, and you have not been, we have not gotten proof of your eligibility to be in a school. So to get all those done. Michelle, can you switch us to the next slide, please? Would the fieldwork be an introduction to the major of education? Oh, okay. Okay. So I think we got through most of them. And these were, wait, fieldwork question. Would the fieldwork be an introduction to the major of education? Is the person running the fieldwork going to be my instructor? It depends. We might be. It's possible you'll have us for a course. It's not necessarily an introduction to the major of education so much as an orientation to what the fieldwork expectation will be if you are in a course that has fieldwork, because some of these are education courses. Others like SSY 105 are not necessarily within the program. And we hope we answered your questions there. What is to be done during fieldwork? Where is fieldwork assigned? When is fieldwork assigned? It links to the course. So I think we discussed about what's going to happen during fieldwork. And then when is fieldwork assigned? Whenever you have a course and it says observation or fieldwork hours, that's when you have fieldwork. And so that there's a slide in the slide deck that lists the number of hours by the courses. So, you know, if you have any one of those courses, you have that, you have those fieldwork hours. What would you recommend? What skills would be recommended? What would be the recommended skills to have a good work environment? So I would, and Michelle, like pop in on this one, I would say, again, kind of due diligence. So being professional, looking into the school before you go, so you have a sense of what their philosophy of education is and how that works so that you can be aware of that, knowing what how you plan to work with them. So if you're going and you only have certain hours, you can ask to participate within a certain amount of time and being reliable. So if you commit to observing certain times, then, and good night, I'm seeing some good nights pop up. So
Okay.
making sure that if you commit to being there at a certain time or day, that you let them know and that you are actually there. And if you're not, like, you provide them with that information, that you get a contact email or phone number, however they'd like to be contacted, and you communicate with them. And that, you be proactive. So asking, how can I participate? How can I support you? What can I do to help? And then kind of following along accordingly. How do you find a school to do field work at? Okay. So, and again, you can kind of
With that,
do the
yeah.
research, right, for the schools around your area, amount of hours. Again, I would say check the slide deck. How long does the training last for? The mandatory online training, I
It
believe that's,
depends, right?
yeah. I mean, we budgeted about 30, I think it was like about 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think
It's,
20 to 30 minutes, yeah.
yeah. So, but of course it will depend. Everyone might look at it, might have a different level of familiarity, excuse me. So it's going to depend on your prior knowledge. If you're familiar with fieldwork, it may just be a review and you might go through it really quickly. If it's completely new, it might take you a little longer. And then you have to account for the multiple choice quiz at the end, but still I would say about 30 minutes or so.
And we've found that students who take the longest are the ones who have to repeat it because they frequently race through it and don't realize they're not prepared for the questions. So the more you have to take it, it's the longer it's going to be. I would suggest you take your time and go through it. I don't think you actually have to finish. I'm not actually, let me not say that because I don't know the answer to that. But I would say take your time and read through everything. And then, it's basically a handbook. You're reading the handbook, where that's what the training is. What are the expectations? What are things that we know at the point that was made? And note that it may change from semester to semester depending on what's happening. New York State, for teacher ed, every semester we get new rules.
Yeah.
And again, we have to follow them.
Yeah. And then I think we got at the last two questions. So Michelle, can you switch us to
Next
the
one.
slide, please?
Oh,
Why
I think
can't
we've
fieldwork?
answered all of this.
Yeah.
We have a list of.
Mhm.
We have some cooperating schools. Nothing near LaGuardia because those are already. A lot of them are actually connected to Queens College. This is sort of their district that we're in as well.
Mhm.
I wish I knew how hard it was going to be to get into school. Yeah, it is hard. We're not gonna kid you about that.
Mhm.
Some students it's really easy to. It depends. Are you in the right place at the right time? Do you know people? Talk to your classmates, talk to people that you see completing hours. It's about persistence. And again, persistence and perseverance, and doing it early. Doing it early. That's when because guess what? If you're trying to think about how many schools right now, how many colleges are ending next week or the week after, and everybody's left their hours for the last minute. Yes, Nancy, going to your old schools help, right? So that's right. Think about how many students you're competing with right now. That's going to be really hard to get into school unless you know someone. It's hard. We do know of students who didn't have time at all, who weren't able to find a school at all because they couldn't take time off from work. So we can't support. That's where we can't support, right?
I think we got a dates are confusing sometimes, and school requirements sometimes aren't listed on the fieldwork information. So we appreciate the feedback. We'll take a look at that. And if you have more feedback, please let us know and we'll try to adjust accordingly based on
Yeah. And we
feedback.
can't guarantee the dates. We can't guarantee things like that. Every semester it changes. It changes by, we try not to put dates on. And then I will say one thing that frustrates me is I have no control over the LaGuardia website. So sometimes I don't know if there are things that are inconsistent there unless a student emails me, and then I have to email them and I can't get it changed immediately. What typically has the most updated information for fieldwork is going to be the Education and TESOL programs website, because I do have control over that. I just need to be better at updating. That's my bad.
And I'm seeing, what if you don't have all the requirements by the time you start classes? Then you still need to complete those requirements. So that's going to impact your ability. That leads to the question of how to be successful in the course. If you don't have all those requirements, it's going to take time to complete them because you won't be able to start your fieldwork until you have those requirements completed. So that could jeopardize your ability to be successful in the course. So please keep that in mind. Even if you start the course and you don't have those requirements, you will need those requirements, and you won't be able to start fieldwork until you have them. And you will need the fieldwork in order to be able to pass the class. Next slide, please.
Oh, we still have more. I thought we were.
I think we got quite a few.
Yeah.
Seems like communication about courses and their requirements could be clearer. So again, we absolutely appreciate the feedback. And if you have ideas for or thoughts or suggestions for what you would like to see, please let us know and we will incorporate that.
Yeah, I will add. I will also add here, there are specific requirements that professors have. So there is variation in terms of what happens in the course of like when the assignments due. We don't have control over that. But yes, the community, we do try. Joseph emails like everything as soon as he totally gets it, but we do have a system where we get a lot of bounce back. We do, but when we get the feedback from you and say, this could be clearer, then we know what we can fix.
We've been trying to do
like this is too broad. So like what specifically could we communicate clearer about the course or the requirements? And if you tell us what it is, we will attempt to fix it. That's why we're here, taking your questions as well.
Yeah. And we have also been trying to kind of reach out via text. So if you get some texts, and if you're not sure if the text actually came from us, you can always just reach out and we'll confirm. And I'm also seeing, what if I'm taking 2 classes that require observations? Do I need to take 50 hours? So I would say that depends on the classes and the number of hours required. Some actually may be more. So for example, if you're in early childhood and you have ELN 206 and ELE 205, you actually have 60 hours. So it will depend on the courses. And yes, you do have to complete them. Again, completing the fieldwork hours is required to pass the course. You cannot pass the course unless you complete the fieldwork hours. Let's see what else we have. Seems like communication. Okay, we did. I don't have any questions about fieldwork. I believe fieldwork is a great opportunity to see how educators teach. Awesome. Haven't worked in fieldwork. We're here to support you. Happy to help. Sorry, I think I'm mumbling.
It's okay. You're going through. We get. Thank you.
I would have to register for the meeting in my first session. I don't know if I have enough credit. Okay, so I'm not quite clear on this one, that I have to register for a meeting in my first session. Well, I don't know if I have enough credit to move on. So I'm not sure if that meant kind of you're coming to the orientation. I'm not really sure if you're going to have the field work, and if so, that's totally okay. You can keep it in mind, and then we'll welcome you at the next set of orientations, but at least you have an idea of what's coming next. I want to observe how teachers deal with conflict with my students, if there are any. So again, you'll have that opportunity to be in schools and see what's actually happening.
And that's a great research question.
Yeah. And thank you. I'm seeing the things. So thanks and good night. Can we select any school? It should be a New York City public school. And that's for certification purposes, because when you go to New York City public school, we know that the teachers have been certified who are working with you. So that might be a UPK3, a UPK4 through kindergarten grades 1 through 12, depending on, again, your major. And so it should be a school in your major, as well as a New York City public school, meaning that grade level. If I can do more hours in a day than I'm required to do every week. Okay, so if you'd like to do more hours at the school than you're actually required to do, you can document them on the timesheet while you're at, while you're in class. But that will depend on your school. Oh, sorry, Michelle.
Sorry, I think this question is more about, so in the letters it says, depending, like if you have 3 hours, you should do 3 hours
Okay,
a week
sorry.
for 10 weeks.
Gotcha.
If you are in a situation in which you have to do that, talk to us. It's fine, but make sure the principal knows, because those letters indicate to the principal that you're only there for 3 hours a week. So you have to make sure that if you're doing more, if you want to finish your hours earlier, make sure that the principal knows, right? This is not something we do that because this is typically what they ask for. They normally want that information. That's why it's in the letter. They want to know how many days a week you're there. What is the requirement for it? That's why we have to put those numbers in there. However, you can talk to the principal and see if they'll agree to keep you on if you need to finish earlier, but make sure the school agrees to it.
And I'm seeing actually the last one I think should have gone, I probably should have put that on the next slide. This is not necessarily a fieldwork question. It's,
Let me go back there.
it was what jobs are the highest paying in my field and what's required. So you may want to actually check out our careers and education workshop if you haven't already. You'll go through that in the EDF 101, but if say you're changing major and haven't come to the EDF 101, you can always, it's on our program website. So you can actually look at our program website and you'll see careers and education workshop, and it will talk about jobs in the field and pay and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. And we received a number of other questions around education related topics, but not necessarily fieldwork. So how do I regain the attention of a special needs students? So many of you will be taking ELE 200, so that would be certainly something to bring up in the class, which is Foundations of Special Education, and to talk with your professors about more about the education major. So please reach out to us with your specific questions. We'd be happy to meet with you in Zoom or person, and we have a number of helping hands that can be involved in helping answer your questions. What are the steps to move into college and career? So great, we have 2 workshops on the education program website that I'd like to direct you to. We have careers in education, and we actually have transfer in education. So careers in education, we'll talk about, we'll give you an idea of what it looks like to work in the public sector, the private sector, and also if you're interested in teaching abroad. It has links to job opportunities, job websites, things like that, and we'll talk a bit about it, as well as an exit survey. So we'd love your feedback so we know what works for you and kind of what you'd like to see. The transfer in education, we'll talk about kind of things that you can expect, things that you should think about, from GPA to connecting with transfer services to application deadlines, at least within CUNY, as well as we have an interview with a student that transferred and shares the experience. And we have a transfer panel where we actually talk to all of our partnering institutions, and we actually talk about something called articulation, and you can take a look at that and go into it, and it will have those agreements and information on that. And again, both of these are on our education program website. How soon can I start working in schools and what courses should I take? Again, if you go to our education program website, there's actually information about how to be a paraprofessional or a teacher's assistant. You could start either of those once you complete the requirements for those positions, which are doable now before you're certified. And the courses you should take, I will refer you to your degree map and your degree audit, and to look at both hand in hand. How many school years we need as an early childhood educator? So I would say that depends on your journey and where you're coming from. So I would say make an appointment if you have more questions. We can help you think about certification. There's also a tab in your ePortfolio called Certification Requirements, or I think New York State certification requirements, depending on which iteration of the portfolio you have, where you can actually do some research around what's required for certification and the steps, and it will give you a better sense of the time and what that looks like over time.
Maria, I'm sorry, I see something in the chat. Maria, actually, we're now developing an early childhood education with special education in it, but we don't currently have that degree. We just have a special education class right now, but we're developing a program. We just got funded to develop a program where it's connected to each classes, but that's coming soon. Hopefully you'll graduate and start working on that and before your college. It's not too late.
And I would say, how do I start figuring out the process into becoming an educator? My first thought was actually, you're here. So that's a great start to figuring out the process, to attending the classes, to looking at things like the career and transfer in education, to actually your ePortfolio, because there's a number of tabs there. So for example, the New York State certification or certification requirements tab that you can look in, and if you haven't already, I recommend that you do. You can put in different options for the education route that you would like, and it will share what you need to do to get there. The education program requirements, for that, I would say make an appointment, talk to us, or look at our education program website. You can take a look at your degree map and your degree audit. And again, we're happy to connect all of that information. But again, I refer you to the education program website and to making an appointment with us. What are some early childhood education programs? And again, that one is a relatively large question. So I would say make an appointment with us, and we can talk about different options and things that are available to you.
Or ask if you're in EDF 101, talk to your professor about it. So maybe they talked about it, but you missed it or something like that. They're also a good way.
And actually, I don't know if ELN 121 still does it, but they used to talk about different types of programs from anyway, that I won't go into ELN 121. There's different early childhood programs discussed in the course. And I think that's actually the last slide, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
that's the last
Thank you.
slide.
And then my Missy
Thank you.
So
Here's the email. That email is the most important thing I think you can have, and it's really easy. It's educationprogram@lajcc.cuny.edu. You email us, and one of us will try to respond to you as soon as possible. We can send you the links to the different websites. You can say, hey, I can't find the link for it, and we can send it to you in the email. That is the quickest way to get an appointment, to see any one of us. It's too much to remember everybody's email, but we use that as a way of filtering out questions to different people. We respond by saying, hey, can you help this student out with this question? Things like that.
And thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, we do.
And your feedback and your questions. And we're looking forward to continuing to work with you. So come by and see us. Stop by, make an appointment.
I guess Joseph, we're done now, so you guys can hang out. Joseph, if you can hang out for a couple of minutes, we'll talk to you after, if you've got 2 seconds. Thank you, everybody else, for coming. Thank you. I'm glad you stayed for the question and answer, because those were sort of personalized questions, but we did think we covered it in the first hour. I'm glad you stayed on for longer.
Thank you. And have a great evening. We hope you have a great weekend.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you. And I'm going to